Hey everyone, this is Alex Arjoon here from Reel Guyana. It's been about a month and a half since the March Onwards was released. So I just wanted to get back on here and do a sort of follow up or recap. First of all, I just want to say thank you everyone for watching it. Your support has been amazing. We really do appreciate all the support and feedback, criticisms, compliments you've given us here at Reel Guyana. It doesn't go unnoticed, and it's really a pleasure to be making this for everyone. So I just wanted to do a quick video to just provide more of an insight from a filmmaking point of view, and how the March Onwards was made and what kind of thought process went into doing this piece of work. So here I'm going to present to you an analysis, a filmmaker's analysis on the March Onwards. And I just want to one last time say a massive thank you to Republic Bank, who's made this possible. Without their support and their initiatives, these films cannot be made. So thank you so much, Republic Bank. And I hope this film is seen by many, many people, Guyanese, everyone else around the world in years to come. Right, here we have a thank you to the sponsor there.
This is bull one.
So if it wasn't obvious that, I just wanted to show in very, very briefly, with as little explanation as possible, how crabs are sort of caught in this mangrove forested area and then taken to Kamaka Market, which is located in Mabaruma on the river. So basically everyone, not everyone, but most people who live in this part of Region 1 will take their produce or whatever goods they're selling to Kamaka Market and, sell it on market day, which is, I think, on Saturdays and Tuesdays. But yeah, so they'll take it to Kamaka Market and get it sold. And that's the main form of income for most people in the area, the market days. That's a big day of commerce. So, as you can see, like crabs are a big thing that are brought out. So they're either sold locally in the region or they're sent on a ferry to Region 4 where we live. And, this is how people get their crab curry and stuff. So I just wanted to establish, this is the main sort of movement of crabs in the region, harvested to market, get sold, people make an income. Obviously explain this. Even though I say a majority of the crab meat comes from this region of the country, I just want people to understand that crabs come from a few different places in Guyana, this being definitely one of the major regions, but there's also crabbing in Region 6 and some parts of Region 4, I think, on mud flats and stuff like that. So, but it's a big thing in Region 1 and also a major form of livelihood for the Waro people living there. So, this whole piece is centered around this idea of traditional livelihood through crabbing. I just want to freeze frame here. So we established that crabbing is a traditional activity by the Warao people, and I like this frame here, this drone frame that kind of flows from mangrove into deforested area, and it says mangrove forests provide a safe and resource-rich habitat for crabs to thrive. So for me, and if it wasn't obvious to everybody else, this is like a bit of foreshadowing. So, we see the mangrove, we say mangroves are important for crabs to thrive. And then, we're slowly zooming into, a cleared area where all the mangroves are cut down. So that's like my artistic foreshadowing for the issues to come, if you didn't get that. Located in the northwestern part of Ghana, the Borimamor Passage is the largest remaining mangrove forest in the country. This is an important statement because I wanted to establish the importance of this area. Not many people are aware of how valuable this mangrove. I don't want to say reserve because they're still trying to make it a fully protected area, but this sort of resource, how important it is to the lives of Guyanese, not only for carbon sequestration, but also the many other things that the people of the area rely on, crabbing being one of them. It's a biodiversity hotspot, which many of its inhabitants, particularly the Warao people, an Amerindian tribe living in that area, rely on for their survival. And then I sort of follow this up within this next statement. The area is monitored by the Guyana Marine Conservation Society, an NGO focused on balancing environmental protection with economic development. This was very important to establish upfront because it sort of just gives a bit of context into the rest of things to come. And when we started doing text along with film, you always have to make this compromise of how do I give just the important points and not have to explain everything through text, because the last thing you want is like the viewers to just be reading everything on screen. It makes for a very annoying documentary. So, you really have to decide, well, what am I going to use my text on? Am I going to use it to explain everything? Because people aren't going to watch that. Or do I just use it to explain the key points so, there's no doubt left on what context you're speaking in. So I just needed to establish that this area is super important as an environmental resource, and it's monitored by the Guyana Marine Conservation Society, which focuses on balancing environmental protection with economic development. These two things obviously need to be balanced because they don't necessarily go hand in hand. We sometimes have to sacrifice one for the other, but it's all about balance, and it's all about getting that formula so people can thrive in both ways.
Without nature, we really can't exist. We all depend on nature. It plays such a major part in life that we might even know about. So, and that's the reason why I like it too, because it always keeps me occupied and wanted to know more about things. And that's how I really get along with conservation. For the Borima Moro Passage, it's not only directly conservation in terms of species or plants, but it's more about the people and the way people go about their day-to-day life and how much they depend on the forest and how much the forest depend on them as well.
All right, so that was the intro of one of the main characters, Arnold Benjamin, who is a conservationist um, working with the Guyana Marine Conservation Society. And I wanted to use his interview or his narrative to establish some key points up front. One, if you remember that he says that conservation is all about people, you know, and that's important because when we think about conservation, many people think, oh, you know, we just have to protect trees at all costs, you know, don't cut down anything, don't touch anything, everything has to be left. That's impossible with people living in certain areas, you know. There's no way we can survive without exploiting some parts of our natural environment, you know, to on certain different scales, of course. And when we when we usually do documentaries, we focus a lot on environmental narratives, but this one I really wanted us to focus on the people and this story about people and how people survive and the sort of conflict that comes with, you know, economic development and conservation. Because, you know, at the end of the day, even though people rely on the environment for certain things, they still have to eat and feed their families. And this is an important point to establish up front. So I thought Arnold's intro was important because he just sort of put that emphasis on people. And then we have the montage of all these different Warao inhabitants of the Bremer Passage doing different things like crabbing and building canoes and bird trapping, like, you know, in the trees and stuff like that. So that's the kind of imagery I wanted to form this connection to the people of the area, because this whole documentary will be about the people living in this area. Spooky. So, just want to stop here quickly. This was an interesting part for me because, you know, the fuel trade in the region is kind of like an open secret, I guess. Um, the deal Guyana has with Venezuela, I wouldn't go into specifics because I don't want to misinform anyone, but the reality is that some fuel, a lot of fuel, comes from Venezuela to, you know, supply the region. A part of this, I think, is because it's not economically feasible to supply it from Georgetown, given the prices. So people bring it from Venezuela, sell it at a cheaper rate, and that, you know, is supplied to people in the immediate Bremer Passage area, as well as in greater parts of the region up to Port Kaituma to help with gold, to power gold mining operations, etc. I didn't want to speak too much about this because I know it costs it sort of maybe detracts from the issue at hand. But as you will find out in following this, is that it's a major contributor to the original issue of crabs and their sort of usefulness to the people in the region. This story is focused on crabs, but this whole idea of fuel is a sort of a catalyst to get the conflict of this documentary started. It's very important and very relevant, but I had to be careful not to spend too much time on it to detract from the issue, one of the issues, or the major issue here faced by the Warao people. But yeah, a lot of people, when I ran this by them, you know, they're like, "Oh, why didn't you talk more about the fuel, or, you know, give the fuel a bigger role?" Which it could have. There's a whole story behind the fuel trade as well, which unfortunately I didn't feel was my time or place to get into. Definitely not now, given our you know, our conflict with our neighbor. So yeah, I just thought this was important though to mention because it catalyzed what's to come. One of the many problems affecting the crabs in the region and therefore the livelihoods of the Waro people.
There's been more boats coming in, like fuel boats from Venezuela, which is causing like fuel pollution as well. When they sell their fuel and the waste fuel that is left back, they normally dump it in the rivers.
From the river, it enter the bank. It enter the bank. As the tide go down, it settle on the bank. It could cause like mainly migration of crabs. So yeah, it causes an impact.
The oil now chasing out the crab. All over by the root river corner side, crab is plenty. We just catch all by we land inside with a catch crab. But now it's different. Any crab march time now, we not get no crab. You got to go a good way far in the back dam, we gotta go search for march crab. The oil not reach till in the back dam. So the crab, they like a good way.
I'm just gonna go back 2 frames there. So there we met Christine, one of the major characters of this film. Christine is a Waro crab catcher, and like she just said, the fuel really chases the chase. Why can't I say chase? The fuel chases the crabs away, pushes them further inland. So she now has to go in what she refers to as the back dam, which is, beyond the immediate mangroves of the river, beyond the riverbank, inland, to go and find more crabs, or which are sometimes located in different farms, small farms at the back. However, the village can only harvest so many crabs on the farm at a time, because these crabs thrive in heavy mangrove areas. So if the mangroves are far away, or there's like other factors that are poisoning them, such as fuel, then they won't be around that area. And this area that Christine is in, an area called Smith Creek, opposite a port named Marijuana. There's a lot of traffic there, a lot of boats traversing the area, selling fuel, dumping fuel. So this really, as you can see from the imagery, these drone shots, it really pollutes the area and does not bode well for crab populations. We were actually lucky to get these aerial shots. When this is the Brima Mora Passage here in this frame, but you can actually, when you're on the boat, you can smell this stuff on the river. You don't see it really close up unless you put the drone up, but the smell is like super high. It's kind of crazy how bad it was. So to just see this from above was actually like a blessing for me as a filmmaker, but obviously a tragedy for the people who have to live in the area, or use the water, or have to rely on crabs. One thing that I thought was pretty cool was that the shape of the oil here, at least the last one, looks like a footprint. So we could say that that's our the footprint mankind has left behind in our careless nature with dumping fuel. So yeah, I thought this was a pretty interesting sequence, and it brings an end to the whole fuel narrative. But again, I used it to catalyze one of the many issues affecting crab populations in the area as a result of development. Development meaning that more fuel is coming in to supply the region from these Venezuelan boats. So, and as a result, with development comes its challenges, this pollution being one of them.
Since young days, I start catch crab for sell. Well, my mother and my father catch any crab and I just follow them to sell in the market. From that time now we know that the crab is not really plenty no more. When the crab season come, we not see no crab.
Sorry, I just want to stop there again. I really like the idea of using just a simple shot of a young Warao child in the area with her toy crabs to just demonstrate, to put as a frame over Christine's narrative. Christine is talking about her days as a kid, helping her mom and dad catch crabs to go sell in the market, and we got a chance to have a beautiful shot at sunset of this kid playing with crabs. So I thought that really boded well for the overlay to just sort of give like a little flashback, and then Christine's frame when she comes in, it looks like she's kind of like pondering on her childhood. So I just thought that was a nice creative shot to have, as opposed to us going straight back into Christine and seeing her talk without the imagery of what she's actually talking about. So in filmmaking, we always just look for like stuff we can reference to really make the story more dynamic, as opposed to having just talking heads. If this story isn't, super fast paced or piques your interest 100% of the time, then talking heads kind of get boring, and you really have to find creative ways to mix it up.
It's not really plenty no more. When the crab season come, we not see no crab. Well, I can dig more crab here. I dig couple hole and I get none. Then chop off the mangrove them, the crab is moving more far. So the people them now them chop down all the mangroves because they need farm. They want to plant.
So here we introduce the second, well, the bigger issue affecting crabbing, which is, cutting down the mangroves, which is predominantly where these crabs thrive, in pursuit of farming. So Christine was pushed into the back dam area with the oil as a result of the higher demand for oil due to development. And now, as she's in the back dam, she's realizing that crabs are just not there anymore because a lot of the mangroves around are now gone. More people are getting into farming, and this is now an issue for her as a person who relies on crabs. So, it's sort of that was kind of the setup with the oil leading into the mangroves. It's sort of her, dealing with these issues of development that are affecting her traditional way of life. Obviously, that's how I edited it, and that is what has happened. I know it may seem like it's all happening in real time. Obviously, it's not. Like, obviously, these are challenges over time. But as a filmmaker, it was my job to string it in a way where it's like, okay, the oil spills are an issue, the fuel spills, and then mangroves being cut down are also an issue. So, if I sort of took the time to say, oh well, the fuel spills happened today, and then weeks go by, and then she goes and people are cutting down, then it takes too long. So we have to obviously be truthful to the story, but put it over in an edit where these points can come across in a flowing sequence, as opposed to having it drag on, because the last thing we want to do is lose our audience. And well, I hope I didn't lose any audience, but that was kind of the intention of the edit. So yeah, now Christine is dealing with the fact that there's increased farming and the crabs are basically piecing. So
GMCS is known over the years for conservation, and Conservation is not only about securing plants, animal, name it. It's about the people because the people depend on the forest. So you can't do one and exclude the other. Some of the things with the work that GMC is doing that I am a part of, because I'm the boat captain and I go wherever the drone unit go, I see forest hand.
So here we bring back Arnold into the documentary. Remember, we introduced him as the lead conservationist up front, where he talks about people being the center of conservation. We see him coming out with the drone team who monitors the area for different, different deforestation plots, because obviously it's in their interest to report any illegal deforestation. Another thing I don't want to get too much into specifics wise because that's sort of not that's for the agencies to handle. We don't, as filmmakers, we don't determine who can or can't cut down mangroves, but the GMCS or the drone unit attached with GMCS does the monitoring, makes reports, and then it's up to the agencies to decide. But we wanted to sort of show their process or how they work because they're an important part of the story. It shows that like there are conservation efforts going on in here, and there's a body that is trying to preserve this pristine mangrove area, the largest remaining mangrove forest in the country, despite the region's push for development. So they're not trying to stop development, but they're very much aware of what the cost of development is, and these things need to be monitored so we as a country know what's what. So they're a very important part from an environmental perspective, and I wanted to show that. I wanted to really give credit to the drone unit, their operations, and what they do, because that's an important part of the story. It shouldn't just be, development versus traditional livelihoods. There needs to be a sort of mediator within this, and their GMCS and Arnold are a big part of this film.
And it looked like it got more clear in the back. What do you think they're doing in the back there?
People doing some agriculture or something.
Imagine how many mangroves used to be there. A lot of the people depend on the crabs, and due to deforestation, there is like less crabs now because the crabs live within the mangroves. So when the mangroves were cut down, the crabs move farther, which makes it harder for the person who catch crabs to earn an income. So it would like definitely affect them.
Sorry, I just like those two shots there. We're hearing a chainsaw going on in the background, trees swaying, which implies they're being cut down. And then we see that crab there looking up in the sky. And on the tree is a crab hawk, sort of almost looking down on him. So I just thought that was interesting that, the trees are kind of cut down now, giving the crab less protection. And the crab hawk is now sort of squaring up on this crab. They were two separate shots, but I just thought they worked well, one after the other. It was just sort of a metaphor for what's going on here. And then we move obviously to this drone shot of, the deforestation happening. quickly, one of my favorite sequences as well is this transition from that cut down scene to big empty vast mangrove forest here. So I'm just gonna skip back. So I know what people are thinking, like, oh well, you know, did you stay there until he cut down everything? No, I did not. I had no plans on staying for someone to clear over an acre of land. Um, Full transparency, these are two separate shots, but this is basically what happens when people clear land, as you'll see further in the documentary. But when we put that over on film, you know, obviously we're working with a budget, we're working with time. So I filmed the cutting down in one frame, and then I moved to another a plot of land that was already cleared and filmed that. And basically those are the two stages. So it gives the impression that, you know, well, you know, it gives exactly what happens is when, you know, people cut down this land, and it's just sort of, it looks desolate after, and that's just the reality of development, is clearing. But in terms of filming the shots, you know, you got to find creative ways to show the passage of time when you aren't afforded the time to spend and film every day, every hour of the day. So yeah, I just thought that was a big thing, you know, to go from a fully covered area with mangroves to then now brown and desolate. So just another kind of sequence out there that shows, oh, like this is the sort of quote unquote devastation that happens with deforestation. Devastation, deforestation in this nation, whatever. Okay.
If they need the area or the region or the community to develop, they have to allow us freely to cut the mangrove. Because if they doesn't allow us to cut the mangrove, how we can clear to plant? It can't happen. We have to clear the woods, the mangrove. My dad always uses to tell us, plant, farm. Plant you'll have for yourself, you'll have to give to other people, the animals, the birds will get, so on, things like that. I never give up farming.
So this is Raymond Small. He's like the foil, as they say. If by foil you mean like opposite, or kind of person with competing interests to Christine. So Christine, we see someone who relies on traditional livelihood, the crabs, and we need mangroves for that. Whereas Raymond, he is all about the development and the farming. But a big issue with competing interests is that you never really want to villainize one person over the other. So just because Raymond is a farmer and cuts down mangroves doesn't mean that he's a bad person. And that was a big part of doing this documentary, is that Raymond cannot be, we shouldn't do any damage to his character. He's a human being. He's a Guyanese, like all of us, trying to make a living. And just because he goes against the conservationist angle doesn't make him wrong. So, you know, I wanted to really, and thankfully he's such a great character that he's very likable. So, you know, it doesn't make my job harder to make him likable, but I just really had to make sure that, you know, I didn't use his words to put him across in a way that, you know, felt like it went against conservation or the environment, because that's just not the case. You know, his reason for farming is totally legit and warranted, and you know, he's a great human being. So, you know, when we're making films, we don't ever want to put down our fellow Guyanese in pursuit of an agenda. We want to give both sides, and I think that's really important. And I for the most part, I feel like I was able to do that. But you'll see, we'll learn to love Raymond even more as this goes on.
There was a big farmer here in the Northwest. His name was Frederick Small. Then he took us to Venezuela. We passed something like about 45 to 46 years that way. Then we decide to come back here. When I go to sleep, many nights I keep thinking of it. What am I going to do, my plans and those things. You understand? When I look into the woods, I imagine how many acres I can clear to plant something that will put a little change in the pocket.
Just to pause quickly, I really like that line. When I look into the woods, I look at how many acres I can clear to put a little change in the pocket. It just goes to show that, like, you have to clear, but at the same time, it's not like he's making, millions of US dollars by clearing all this land. So just to put into perspective, like, we need food to eat, but Raymond isn't doing this just to fill his pockets. I mean, it may sound so, but he has to survive just like everyone else. He's not a rich guy just coming in to exploit the area of poor people. He's a hardworking man who wants to make a living, wants to get by just like everybody else, who has clearly a very deep passion for farming and agriculture. So yeah, it's an interesting juxtaposition from the story we've created so far.
Well, my wife, she always telling me that Raymond, you only wasting money behind the farm, throwing away all the little money behind the farm. But I like that. I like what I'm doing, the farming.
No, I don't think you're not focusing on anything else right now. He wake up at night and he study the next day what he will be doing on the farm. Yeah.
There's no reason for me to include Helen, Raymond's wife. I mean, obviously she's a lovely lady, and I definitely wanted to include her. But I think having her sort of small testimonial in the documentary further humanizes Raymond, shows what a hardworking husband he is, how much he cares about his farming. The fact that she says, he wakes up in the middle of the night and is thinking about his plans on the farm, really is a testament to his hard work and passion. And I think those are the little cues when you are portraying someone's identity. That's very important. A testimonial by someone who loves them or is close to them. And it goes a long way in storytelling. If maybe we didn't have Helen in the doc, then we would have just relied on Raymond's word for his character. But having her in there, to me, I felt went a long way in showing what exactly this is.
We having a little difficulty here with selling our produce, and I'm glad if we can get assistance from the government so we can sell our produce more easily. I heard that they're bringing a new vessel to buy more produce from the farmers, and if it is so, well, maybe our produce will sell a bit more,
Just recently, the government buy a boat for the Northwest Route, Region 1 ferry. And I think it's a much bigger one than the present one that runs here, which is Kimbia. Knowing that it will got the capacity to hold more farm produce, it means that the door would open more to farming. It really can boost the whole economy of Region 1 and a country as a whole.
Guyana recently received a new ferry, the MV Malaysia, from builders in India, and though its primary purpose is to transport people, goods, and vehicles to and from the Northwest District in Region 1, it offers an opportunity to boost the Berima-Waini region's agricultural production. President Dr. Irfan Ali said this is possible because a modern vessel can ship products to Trinidad and Tobago, be it crab meat or provisions, in about 15 hours' time.
This vessel opens up opportunity for food production, value-added food production, and economic opportunities for the people in Region 1.
So this was kind of another turn in the story. We see Raymond saying, lately they've been having difficulty moving produce, which is interesting because, you have it so far, it feels like Christine, the crab catcher, is the one struggling because, she's fighting against the fuel spills and the mangrove being cut down for farming. And we look at Raymond as like, okay, maybe this guy is the one causing the problems, but he's also struggling because it's not like there's a definite market for his produce. Like people are still struggling to get produce out of the region, get it sold. The town of Mabaruma or Kumaka, the market, isn't necessarily a huge, immediate market to sell produce. A lot of the produce are sent on the ferry back to Georgetown. However, the old ferry, the Kimbia, has not been the most reliable. It hasn't really, I don't want to say it's failed the region, but it hasn't been the most fruitful in terms of getting those supplies out in a timely manner. There are a lot of challenges that these farmers face. So now there's like this new ferry called the MV Militia, which is, supposedly going to now transport, as the newsroom piece said, crab meat and provisions. So both Christine and as a crab catcher and Raymond as a farmer are going to benefit. And this is this potential turn of events as a result of development that will give these people an opportunity to succeed and earn a greater income. So, this is just like another part of the story that's exciting and maybe a potential opportunity that they can jump on.
A lot of ginger we sold for this crop, more or less. Yeah, so, and still we having some yet in the earth, in the mud. Digging gold, let's digging gold. But we need buyers, people to buy it. More fast, better for us. Maybe if it leave too long in the land, in the earth, it would spoil. Yeah. Well, this is a little field that we started here not very long ago. We clean it, burn it, and we already planting ginger and coconut here. This land was pure forest, full of big trees, mangrove. And well, I got people, my neighbor, he first started helping me, cut down the trees. I employ other workers from around here. And the first cutting was like 7 acres. Then we gone to like 5 more, which was 12 acres. But we had a lot of work junking up, cutting up the wood, the mangrove with the chainsaw, then to burn them. We pile them up, heap them up as we say, and then to light them a fire, burn them. After that, we start putting the trench. That took us about 3 months to trench around that piece of land, that's 7 acres.
So I just like how, it's kind of been slow up to this point, as we sort of connected to the 3 main characters, Christine, Arnold, and Raymond. And now the music sort of gets in there and there's a flow of sequence. So now Raymond is talking about the process of clearing land, by cutting mangroves, burning them, and then digging trenches for irrigation. I just want to say that, these trenches, by the way, were not dug with an excavator. They were by hand. Raymond hired Warrows from the neighboring communities to come in, and he pays them by the day, and they dig these trenches with a cutlass. And that's why it takes so long to happen. So, it's not like even Raymond, who is like clearing it, he's not doing like mass development at the time using heavy machinery. I'm sure he'd like to. It would make his job a lot easier, but maybe for economic reasons or financial reasons, he's not able to do that. So, in a way, it's still providing some jobs. But yeah, it's just interesting to see this whole process unfold and what really goes into creating these farms. It's not easy work. So it's not like someone's just coming in there and throwing money at it and it's happening. It's a lot of hard work just to grow produce to feed, the region or Georgetown where these produce may be exported to.
Day by day, we making progress so far. If you see here, this is a boundary hole, right? Crab hole, this here. Well, this fella come out at night and eat up all of these plants and so on. These crabs. They're pests here. As fast as we plant and the crops start coming up, they come and eating it out. We have to try to get rid of them. If we don't, we doesn't get no crops. Yeah.
So this is the first. This is kind of the first direct conflict we've seen between Raymond and Christine. Well, obviously Christine didn't appreciate all the mangroves being cut down, but Raymond directly has stated that the crabs are detrimental to his crop. So he wants to get rid of them. It's in his interest to do what he can so they don't kill his hard work. All the hard work he's put in will just be offset due to the crabs. I didn't put this in the doc, but he also was telling me that the smaller crabs go and dig holes in the trenches, and the trenches then collapse into themselves, and it blocks up the irrigation. So they're a general nuisance, especially the smaller ones, and that's sort of his problem now. So we finally see in the documentary there's like these two directly competing interests, and it's interesting because these two actually never meet each other. But so I just think it's important in film to show two sides of the coin, so you get an appreciation for each person's motive and agenda and their way of survival.
Well, we can't find them crab here now it's afternoon. We got to go till crab dark side. That's a good way we got to go. We got to go in the sea. We got to go through the swelling. Go ashore and catch the crab. They're going to take like 3 hours. Well, it's not safety because we got to go through the swelling. It's really rough. We frighten like bad people. They may thief your motor, or they come and then beat you up, and then take away the engine and the boat, or sometimes then kill you and left you there, and you go reach back home. That thought there in we mind, and we just go catch crab.
So this one was a tough one to film because it really showed the reality of Christine's situation. Obviously, the Warao of Smith Creek are not the most financially secure people. They rely on crabs for their livelihood. And then because, of the challenges at Smith Creek, they have to now go out into the Atlantic Ocean in search for new crabbing areas, because a lot of the area where they live in the crabs are affected. So they now have to brave the swelling of the sea. They have to brave potential threats to their safety through piracy, and a number of other factors that can really compromise their safety. So it goes to show how far, physically and metaphorically, quite literally and metaphorically, Christine has to go just to earn an income. And just sort of filming this, hearing her voice crack while describing it to us was hard. But it really showed us the reality of what a lot of people have to go through, and give an appreciation for what goes into this, goes into the products we consume, and maybe even take for granted. You know, there's a if in fact we are exporting crab from the region, then you know this is a lot that has to, you know, go into harvesting. So they should maybe be compensated better. Maybe that's not up to me to decide, but yeah, I thought this was very powerful because we're really seeing the grueling nature of crabbing. This is the Bremermore Passage. Imagine this 18 horsepower boat in the Atlantic Ocean. Obviously, they try to stay as close to the shore as possible, but when you go into Crab Dog, as Christine mentions, you know, you're traveling for 3 hours on an 18 horsepower in the ocean, which is crazy because if the engine fails, or if the swelling knocks them out the boat or capsizes the boat, it's not, survival isn't the easiest thing. You know, it's super dangerous. So this just sort of demonstrates, and I know we don't see it here, obviously. And for full transparency, when we were shooting this, they didn't actually go all the way to Crab Dog. It was advised that we don't go there due to the boat and engine that was available to us at the time. So we went to a part of a different part of the a different crabbing area, excuse me, that a little closer, but not one that always has an abundance of crabs, but one where we can film the experience as it usually is, has the same kind of hardships, the same kind of difficulty in getting there and then going to catch the crab. So we wanted to make sure that was shown as accurately as possible, instead of actually going to Crab Dog.
No, if the water high, he asked if the water high in the bush. You get a crab? This buck crab. That's for eat.
Eat and sell.
Yeah.
That's what we are living.
Mosquito plenty.
These mangrove forests are totally brutal when you're catching crabs in them. There's a lot of resting water and therefore a lot of mosquitoes. So the minute you even enter the forest, you don't even actually have to enter. You can just be standing next to it, close to the beach, and you will be completely annihilated by mosquitoes. So again, just after braving potential piracy, the dangers of the swelling, potentially capsizing, all these dangers of actually getting to the destination, you're now tortured from head to toe by millions of mosquitoes and in the mud. So this is just the hardship that goes into catching these crabs. And Christine and her family that are now doing this are experiencing the brunt of what this practice entails. Sorry, just to cut there as well. It was also a super eye opener to film this because as we're doing it, we got to experience firsthand the physical pain that comes with, being in the mud, getting stuck in the mud while being eaten alive. And this is something that, we really take for granted because we were just filming it and we're super uncomfortable and it was unbearable at one point. But imagine people who do this multiple times a week, or have to do it multiple times a week. They don't have a choice. So, that was just something I wish maybe we could have captured in even more detail. Unfortunately, we only got to film one day at this location. But I want to stress that it should not be taken for granted. This is brutal stuff.
This crab important for the Wara people because that is how them Wara people live pan. Because them in have no job. Them Wara people live in pan crab. Saturday you gotta go come out market. So you gotta catch the crab like Friday. That is how we just live. But the other day we catch crab for this boat and none of the crab in sale. Because the price that what we call, it's too hot for them.
The crab too cheap, and the ration, the sharp goods dear.
Yes.
They leave it money, and how much, so much to what you want you can buy.
If it's $1,000 gallon rice, and if you catch one quick crab, they just for a gallon rice money you catch. They can't buy like you could buy sugar, you could buy flour. You can't make more money from crab because the crab too cheap.
So just imagine here, you go through all the peril of finding these crabs, this commodity that is very perishable once you catch them. They don't survive very long, and they have to be sold right away. So the fact that Christine is now struggling to find markets for the crab is telling, because the amount they have to spend in fuel to get there, maintenance of the boat, the arduous journey, and then going through the torturing mangrove forests and mosquitoes and whatnot to not get their crop sold puts them in a serious predicament. And this is something that we really try to capture, and I think her telling the story while in that environment made it a bit more effective, especially when she said that a quake of crab, which is about 10 crabs, is only enough to buy a gallon of rice. So it's not a very good trade-off. And they have to now raise their prices to keep up with the cost of basic commodities at the market. And people just simply don't want to buy it now. So, it just sort of highlights a bigger problem where this form of livelihood might actually be non-sustainable for them. They maybe at this point in time, it might be better for them to consider other options. And that's something we wanted to try and get out through this sort of sequence of shooting and really getting in this environment with Christine and her family to show how this practice is done and, what it means for people like her, the Waro people in this area, the Brimo-Moore Passage.
They was building this building to do crab processing, because as you know, this community here is an Amerindian community, highly dependent on crab. They go out and catch crab, and sometimes the market is not available, and they have to bring back the crab, and of course, it's really worrying, They're always saying, well, this year the crab wasn't like before. It didn't march as it used to be, and things like that. So then we have to do something, because the building, it never materialized, could be used for other purpose that you could benefit of. So they come up with this idea that they will do farming, and they choose pepper, which is the Wiriri pepper. It's a pepper that have a nice flavor, especially for cooking. Pepper from Region 1, especially the Wiriri pepper, is even better than the one in Georgetown. And I would think it's because this is organic stuff, naturally grown, no fertilizer. So if you pick this pepper today, this pepper can last maybe a whole week. This project being a reality through the Guyana Marine Conservation Society with help from donors. And it's really to help the women of Smith Creek community. And these ladies, at the beginning I can tell you they were struggling. But because of good faith, they worked through. Many times they weed the bed over and over before the seedling was ready for them to plant. And now they start harvest. And you could see the difference in the women. And even the men joining now, which is something good. The agriculture part, I know it's kind of a little tricky knowing that you're trying to explain the importance of the forest, but then agriculture, you have to clear forests. So Smith Creek is a good example, because the land was already cleared for the crab processing project, so it never materialized. So that's where the replanting come in real handy for the women.
I think it was really important to have Arnold, who we introduced as the face of conservation, who initially said conservation is about the people of the area, to be the one to make this compromise through this alternative solution. And it actually, worked out so well, because Smith's Creek did in fact have a building that they were using to process crabs. However, the building didn't even have running water at the time. So the project was a complete fail. I mean, there's no way you can process crabs without a water supply. So, GMCS took the initiative to, repurpose this idea or this building into something more sustainable, using, improving upon developmental actions, farming, that were more sustainable. When you farm peppers, Wiriri pepper specifically, it's much less of an area that is cultivated to grow these peppers. So it in a way, it really provides a new opportunity for people of the area. So I think, like I said, Arnold being the one to connect all of this really made sense, because conservation, like we established early in the film, is not just preserving at all costs. It's coming with this compromise so everybody can live as sustainably as possible, and not ignore completely this idea of economic development.
For the development of the country, there would be a time when you would have some changes. Changes have to be made when it comes to development.
Well, my intention is to continue further down in the land to see how much acres we can cultivate, as long as I have strength, health and strength. Yeah, But I expect to go on till I see the last ball bowl, as they say. That's it.
I thought that was important to bring Raymond in one last time, to show how resilient he is, dealing with this big farming effort. He just loves farming. I just wanted to reiterate that and show that like nothing's gonna stop him. Nothing's gonna stop him from being the best farmer he can be, and he's gonna do it till the day he dies. And I thought that was such a powerful statement by him, to conclude his storyline within this film. It's nothing personal that he's cutting down mangroves. He's doing it because that's what he knows. Farming is what he knows. It's been in his family for a long time. It's what he grew up on. It's how he carries himself honorably, and with dignity. And I think that's an important part of his character. So to have this final wrap up with him, and also to show that he's a representation of other farmers in the region. So with the ferry coming, it's just another reason for him to double down on his investment. And this is a decision other farmers will have to make as well if they want to capitalize on, agricultural expansion. So I thought this was a good arc for Raymond, and I'm happy with how we portrayed him. He's a good guy.
For farm, you got to clear forest. And the only way you can do it if you plan properly. Because the demand is there. Guyana is a growing economy now, and you would have some problem with food supply. So if area can be developed here in Region 1, and which I think the government is working really hard towards getting the village leaders to understand more about the best way of planning for the village development and the country as a whole. So for farming, yes, it would cause a threat or impact on the environment in terms of clearing of land. But I think if we do it in a responsible way and we plan properly, it could be done.
So there we have Arnold's conclusion where, he says both economic development and traditional livelihoods or conservation can exist, once there's proper planning involved. And I think this is such an interesting way to conclude because, this is happening in an area in Region 1 or in the Northwest that's relatively small compared to, the development happening on the coast for example, in Region 4. And it's interesting because it's almost like no one questions the development when it's happening in Region 4. But if we look at mangroves being cut down in our largest remaining mangrove ecosystem, we feel more like angry at the fact that people are just aimlessly cutting down this important area. But we're sort of going full steam with our development here. So I think it was interesting to hear different reactions to this. And, I think this documentary can actually speak for, or is like a metaphor for what's happening on the coast here. Whereas we're sort of, as we develop, we really need to think about what the consequences of that are and what we actually stand to lose. And I think Arnold, from a conservationist perspective, is speaking logically beyond just the situation happening in this area. So yeah, I also liked his wrap up as well and his whole role within this film. I think we utilized him well as a character, and his points were very effective in pushing the story along, or the message at least that we're trying to portray.
Most of the Wara people is catch crab and sell. That's the only way for live in a community. Now we get this pepper project, and now we doing both sides. If you catch crab and then you pick the pepper, you get your money too. I like to plant this pepper here, this wee pepper. All the women so glad to see that because we never get that before in the area. Next year from now, we're going to see more pepper we're going to see in the community. More change in the life we could see.
So that's sort of Christine saying that, you know, farming, crabbing isn't the only way to survive. And now she's found this idea of sustainable pepper farming, which she's going to use to supplement her income, and jump on the whole regional push for agriculture, but in a sustainable, in her own sustainable way, or in her community's own sustainable way. And yeah, I think it's like, as opposed to her just doubling down on the opposite direction. I know in many environmental documentaries we'll see people just pushing for the preservation of forests at all costs. And you know, I think the people here understand the realities of the situation, and the fact that, you know, they can still value their community, value their environment, without having to totally, you know, disregard the economic opportunity that everyone else is entitled to. So, you know, it's a constant effort to balance conservation, development, and traditional livelihoods. But, you know, it's something you constantly have to work on through planning, through discussion, through open dialogue. And I think that this is what we tried to show. This is the message we tried to show in the documentary, is that there are multiple factors involved if we want to live in a perfectly balanced society. And maybe we'll never get it, but you know, it's a start, and I feel like we're left feeling a bit optimistic here. So that's the conclusion of the March Onwards. And you know, we just wanted to share our thoughts with you, and thank you again for tuning in. It was a real pleasure to make it. It was an absolute pleasure to be in the environment of Region 1 of the Bremer Passage, to get to know more about Guyana and its many cultures, the countless things that are happening, the different experiences people are having. And more importantly, we wanted to do this to sort of continue to give insight into Reel Guyana and what it is we do, what our thought process is while making films, while telling stories. So, you know, if anyone has any questions or any critiques, please leave them in the comments. We'll try to address it. And, you know, we hope we can continue to break down more films to you. Maybe in the future, we'll do some of our old films and talk about what the thought process was behind that. So, yeah, we want to continue making films and content for you guys. And like I said, we really appreciate you tuning in. And I want to give one last thank you, massive thank you, to Republic Bank for making all this possible, for allowing this film to see the light of day by supporting us. So we thank you, and we encourage other private sector organizations to step up and support the creative industry, because, you know, us Guyanese have a lot to say as it regards to shaping our story. So thank you very much, and let me know what you think.